Dzień dobry, good day. I am David. I'm a composer, a guitarist, and sound designer from Prague. And I did the orchestration and transcription of the Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Warlock Town theme. And now, before I talk about this amazing piece of music, I need to tell you how I really came to know Mateusz, the maestro of the orchestra. Because we basically met on the internet. We met on Facebook for the first time. We just exchanged a few messages because Mateusz knew about several of my Heroes of Might and Magic covers that I did on the guitar some years ago. But that wasn't it. I went to Poland, to Wrocław, with my father to see a concert of Paul Antonio Romero, a full Heroes of Might and Magic symphonic concert. And when we were at the buffet or the bar, I don't remember exactly, with my father, a really cool and pretty genius looking guy with curly hair came up to me, and I recognized that's Mateusz. We met, we talked for the first time, and it was amazing because we both had the same vision. We wanted to bring the Heroes music to the people and have it performed. So right there, we've decided to start working together on many things, on these arrangements, on concerts and stuff. So that's how all of these ideas came to life, basically. Now, Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Warlock. The piece I wanted to orchestrate had to be pretty difficult because I like to challenge myself. I don't like doing simple things. I like to do things that teach me, so to say. And this was a piece that I definitely knew was going to be pretty difficult to interpret and to transcribe. But also, it's my favorite piece out of Heroes of Might and Magic 2 and maybe even 3. Because the originality of the piece is just really, really high. Even though I know from Paul Antonio Romero, personally, he told me that there are some inspirations for this piece. Namely, it concerns composers Prokofiev and Mozart. But the pieces that inspired Paul Antonio Romero to compose this Warlock theme aren't really that close to it when you listen to it, which is really good. Paul Romero took inspiration in the best sense it can have, because there are similarities only in the rhythmical and phrasing sense of those pieces. Other than that, it's a very, very original piece, and it's based on D, but it doesn't have a key. Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't have a key. There are keys in the middle of the piece, not in the first part where you have the escalating, complicated scale, because it's not a scale. It's sort of a series of melodic fragments that are ascending, and they create the impression of a scale, while not really being a scale. Nevertheless, the piece has a central note. It's complicated enough. I love how complicated it is in terms of melodic content, and to say it simply, how many notes it actually contains. However, it can still be considered centered or circling around D. let me play a little bit of it on the guitar so I can show you exactly what I mean. I'm gonna tune it down to D. So the pedal note here is D, which is not usually the standard tuning of the guitar. I had to change it so I can do the pedal. The piece starts with the down pedal of D. And at the end of each phrase where the melodic fragment or the scale fragment plays out, with the last note, we hit the D again. So we re-establish the basis that the whole piece stands on. And we would keep going like this, repeating D and ascending in the scale. Now the reason why I call this a scale, I keep calling it a scale, is because it starts on D and ends on D. But the content inside, the notes, there are a lot of step backs and a lot of accidental changes. It sort of almost seems like it's chromatic, so I don't really want to call it a scale for that reason. But it has a definition of a scale because it starts on D and ends on D. This alone is not really that complicated to perform live, but then the strings join in very early in the piece, and they join in a canon. It's sort of a canon, not entirely, but when three notes of those ascending phrases are played in the piano, the strings play the same phrase, but it starts on the third note of the piano phrase, so it's delayed. The strings respond to it with a delay, which means it is a canon, but there are also notes that are not responding to the piano. Now combine this with the natural, beautiful acoustics of the Witold Lutosławski Hall, and you have a nightmare, basically, because all the reflections, they come at you at different times, and each of the musicians get a differently timed reflection based on where they are in the hall. So it was really hard to rehearse this and practice this, and I felt almost sorry for all the dear friends in the Heroes Orchestra, but they were really brave and really great. And the way they managed to not only record it on video, but also perform it live with Paul Antonio Romero was just amazing. It was an amazing performance. Now to say a bit more about the middle part, where the operatic voice enters and harp also starts playing a really nice harmonic progression. And the strings change from spiccatos or staccatos into legatos, into long notes. The piece sort of calms down, or at least it seems that it's calming down. Definitely it does in the sense of bass, but in the sense of harmonic progression, it doesn't. It keeps getting higher, it keeps getting up, up, up. And this is also what Paul Romero confirmed to me, that his goal with this piece was to just keep running higher and higher. And this is true even for this part where the singer sings in German, which is maybe a reference to Brahms a little bit. And the reason why it keeps, why I think it keeps getting higher is because of the harmonic progression in there. The chords, they keep changing, and they sort of give you this feeling that the piece is still moving forward. I'll give you a few chords from the part, not all of them, because I can't even play them properly on the guitar because they are harp chords, but I will try. In that part of the piece where the singer starts, we go into B flat major first. Then we we go G minor. The next is E flat major. The other is C minor, if I remember correctly. And the last one I remember here is A flat major, and then it keeps getting further and further. Each of the two of these chords have some common notes in between them, and that's how they interconnect with each other, even if they're not from the same key. Paul Romero is a really great composer, so he doesn't really care if what key it is. He knows how to connect the notes together, no matter what the chord comes from, basically. And on top of this, there is the ending part. That is basically the repetition of the beginning, which I thought was a pity that it was short, because I love the part so much. It's probably my most favorite series of notes, the ascending scale-like motion in this piece. Most favorite I've ever heard. So I wanted to honor it, and I added one more iteration of it at the end, and changed the string part, not only to make it maybe a little bit easier for the strings, but also because I kind of felt that I wanted to reverse the motion of the strings, because in the staccatos they are always going up da 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 da, and in the ending they go da 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 da, sort of like downscaling motion. And Mateusz Alberski, when he heard this, he said, well, that's cool, that's so cool, it sounds like Mozart. And then I realized the piece is a little bit inspired by Mozart. And who isn't inspired by Mozart? Namely, probably Requiem. And that's why it also works so well as a whole. It works so well because Paul Antonio Romero is a genius composer who also happens to know a lot about classical music, and he knows how to use that knowledge very well. And yeah, I could talk about this piece for hours, I think, but it's probably not a good idea. You wouldn't enjoy that very much, I think. So I'll say goodbye for now. And if you want to see or hear more of my stuff, you can go to my new TikTok that I've made right here, or on my Instagram right here. And that's it for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you all again on some other video or another nice occasion. Bye bye.